My daughter-in-law arrived unexpectedly at 3 a.m. The truth will haunt you forever. The clock struck 3, its eerie chime echoing through the darkened halls like a funeral bell. Mary jolted awake, heart racing, the shadow of dread wrapping around her. She'd never thought she'd be staring down the night like this, but the knock at the door sent her spiraling into confusion. Who could be visiting at this hour? She tiptoed to the living room, shadows dancing in the flickering light, each creak of the floorboard sending a chill up her spine. Then she saw Julia, her daughter-in-law, with wild eyes and disheveled hair. The moonlight painted her face with a ghostly hue, making it hard to tell if she was there to take refuge or bring doom. Mary blinked, trying to process the scene. Julia's breath came in quick gasps, words tumbling out in a hurry. "You have to help me. They're coming." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to unleash chaos. Mary's tight chest felt like an anchor weighing her down. What could possibly have driven Julia to her doorstep at this ghastly hour? Had something happened at the party last night? Her mind raced, drawing up images of horrified faces and whispered secrets around the punch bowl. As Julia fought to catch her breath, Mary glanced at the front window, half expecting to see figures lurking in the shadows. Panic seized her, twisting her stomach into knots. Outside, the streetlights flickered ominously, casting long shadows across the pavement. Was it her imagination, or did she see movement just beyond the glow? The world outside felt charged with an electricity that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weight of her words clung thickly to the air. Mary leaned closer, her eyes locked onto Julia's. "Who's coming?" she demanded, voice barely above a whisper, fear slicing through her resolve. Julia's eyes bore into Mary like a plea, a mix of terror and urgency. "I can't tell you everything now. Just trust me, run." The house seemed to hold its breath. Each sound felt amplified, every tick of the clock like a final countdown. Then came a crash outside, shattering the fragile silence. Mary's pulse quickened. Whatever was lurking in the dark was closer than she imagined. And in that moment of uncertainty, with shadows creeping closer, she felt it, a chilling realization. What had Julia brought back into their lives? As the front door burst open, revealing silhouettes against the swirling night, Mary's heart raced. Who was there? What were they after? It all spiraled together into chaos, leaving Mary with one burning question. Would they survive the night, or would this be the last holiday she'd ever celebrate? The door slammed against the wall with a thunderous bang that reverberated through the house. Mary's heart leaped into her throat as she clung to Julia. The warmth of her daughter-in-law's body a fragile shield against the unknown. The shadows outside slipped into the room, dark and threatening like a looming storm. "Run!" Julia whispered again, her words sounding almost desperate. Without thinking, Mary grabbed her coat, her hands trembling. The air was heavy with fear, and the walls seemed to pulsate with the raw tension surrounding them as they bolted for the back door. More crashes echoed, filling the night with a chaotic symphony that drowned out the ticking clock. Mary glanced over her shoulder just in time to see two figures stepping inside. Their faces obscured but their intentions clear. Her breath hitched. She felt like prey caught in the crosshairs of a hunter. "Where do we go?" Mary gasped, trying to navigate through the crowd of furniture, using the living room's familiar contours to guide her. Julia hesitated, her eyes darting around as if weighing options. "The basement. We can hide there." Mary made a beeline for the basement door, heart drumming loudly in her ears. With Julia hot on her heels, they stumbled down the creaky steps into the cool darkness. Each footfall felt like thunder against the surrounding silence, a reminder of the chaos above. They pushed the door shut, the faint click echoing ominously, sealing them in shadow. The basement was a cold tomb, cluttered with boxes and old furniture, the musty smell enveloping them like a wet blanket. They crouched behind an old couch, breathlessly waiting, every whisper of air sending shivers through Mary's spine. Earthen silence choked the space, and the darkness seemed to absorb them, amplifying their fears. "What did you bring into this house, Julia?" Mary finally whispered, her voice shaking as the weight of the last few minutes hit her. "What is happening?" Julia's face was lit by a sliver of moonlight peeking through a grimy window, revealing fear etched into her features. "It's not what I brought. It's who I ran from." The tension coiled tighter between them, every word dripping with a mixture of anxiety and dread. Mary leaned closer, feeling the chill from the damp walls seep into her bones. "What do you mean?" I don't know how to explain it, but they were there last night at the party. They saw me and they know about Julia choked on her words, a wave of panic washing over her. Mary's mind raced back to the party, the way the atmosphere shifted when that strange man had whispered in Julia's ear, the sharp eyes watching her from the corners. "What do they want from you?" Silence answered her question, thick as the shadows surrounding them. Just as the tension reached a breaking point, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed from above, the creaking of wood threatening to unveil their hiding place. Mary felt her heart plummet. The intruders were searching. "Don't make a sound," she urged, gripping Julia's arm tightly. But deep down, dread settled like lead in her stomach. What had Julia dragged into their lives? And who were these ominous figures? Were they about to find out? Suddenly, the basement door rattled, followed by the distinct creak as it opened just a crack. The dim light from the upstairs illuminated the hallway, and Mary's pulse thundered in her ears. Whoever was out there was coming closer, and time was running out. But as Mary turned to look at Julia, the flicker of determination in her daughter-in-law's eyes sparked something within her, a raw, fierce urge to fight back. Would they find a way out of this nightmare? Or was the darkness of their past destined to engulf them both? The light poured into the basement like an unwelcome invader. Mary held her breath, the knot of fear tightening in her chest. Her eyes were glued to the door, watching as the shadow of a figure elongated and twisted in the narrow beam. Only silence filled the air, but that felt like a treacherous lull before a storm. "Mary," Julia whispered urgently, her grip tightening on Mary's hand. There was strength in her fear, a flicker of resolve that ignited something within. This was their fight, together. As the figure above shifted closer, Mary felt the floor beneath her shift with her racing heart. "Do you trust me?" she asked, her voice barely louder than a breath but laced with fierce intent. "Yes," Julia said it with a conviction that echoed in Mary's soul, grounding her. Mary had an idea. "We need a diversion. If we can get them to look away, we might just slip past." Julia nodded, the fragile hope igniting between them. Mary scanned the basement, cluttered, dark, and filled with relics of the past. Her eyes landed on a dusty old box filled with holiday decorations piled under a staircase. "Grab that," she motioned toward it. "We can make it work." Julia hesitated for a split second before nodding, moving quickly yet carefully. The sound of the footsteps above grew louder, deliberate, as if the figure were taking its time. Mary suppressed the rising panic and helped Julia haul the box closer to the door. They stacked decorations, old ornaments, tinsel, anything they could find to create a barrier, hoping it would make enough noise to draw attention. With a quick glance back at the door, Mary held her breath. Now, they pushed the box to the side, sending it tumbling with alarming clatter into the space below the stairs. Glass ornaments shattered like 1,000 tiny screams, echoing through the bones of the house. The footsteps stopped. Mary's heart raced, her skin prickling with adrenaline. There was a beat of silence, and then the figure moved. She could see its shadow pausing, waiting, listening, and she felt a rush of urgency. "Quick," she urged, crouching lower as she motioned for Julia to follow her deeper into the shadows of the room. They crawled silently toward the far wall, praying to stay hidden, hoping the darkness would blind their pursuer. Seconds stretched out like hours. Mary peered over her shoulder, just in time to see the figure lean into the basement, scanning the space. It was perceptive, its movements calculated. Dark clothes swirled around the figure, and the glint of metal flashed briefly as the light flickered above. "It's only a matter of time," Julia breathed, her voice trembling. "Stay quiet," Mary whispered. She felt the weight of their danger pressing on her, but she refused to let terror take them. They had to find a way out together. Just as tension threatened to send Mary over the edge, the figure stepped back, seemingly pacing out of the basement. Hope kindled in Mary's chest. "Now," she hissed, fumbling for the stairway. Julia followed closely, scooting on her knees, eyes wide with fear. They quickly reached the stairs, pressing against the cool wood and straining to hear. The footsteps continued above them, uncertain, retreating. Which way? Mary whispered, desperation leaking into her voice. I think through the kitchen, Julia breathed, glancing at the stairs leading up into the home, a path cluttered with dread. Before they could strategize further, a voice boomed from upstairs, slicing through the air. Julia, we know you're down there. Fear sent chills down Mary's spine. The pursuers were sharp, and their resolve was chilling. Run back into the shadows, Mary instructed firmly. We'll figure this out, I promise. Just as they sank back, shadows pooled around them, and the search continued. But what they didn't anticipate was what lurked in those shadows, hungry and waiting for its moment. With no choice left, Mary steeled her resolve. The unknown was encroaching, but so was a truth that threatened to shatter everything and this fight for survival. Would they discover who truly threatened them, or would the darkness reveal secrets even they weren't ready to face? The floor creaked ominously underfoot as they crouched in the dark. Mary strained to hear the sounds above, footsteps, muffled whispers, everything seemed amplified. Each creak of the house a reminder of their vulnerability. Do you think they'll find us? Julia's voice broke the tense silence, barely a whisper, but it quivered with fear. We have to trust the shadows, Mary replied, her resolve hardening. If they come down here, we'll think of something. They clung to each other, the fear weaving tighter around their hearts. Mary felt the coldness of the wooden wall behind them, a reminder of how trapped they were. She thought of the decorations they had given them hope, but hadn't solved anything. Suddenly, a loud crash above sent tremors through the floor. What was that? Julia flinched, eyes wide with panic. Mary bit her lip, her thoughts racing. I don't know. But we need to move now. She gestured toward the narrow door at the far end of the basement, a last resort that held the possibility of escape. They crept closer, every tiny sound amplifying the darkness. The door looked ancient, its rusty handle nearly camouflaged against the peeling wallpaper. Mary reached for it, her fingers trembling as she gripped the cold metal. Wait, Julia whispered, glancing nervously back at the stairs. What if they see us? I know, but we can't stay here. Mary pushed open the door, the hinges groaning like a wounded animal. A gust of stale air rushed out, mingling with the scent of dust and despair. They staggered into a small, musty room filled with old boxes and forgotten memories. The faint glow of moonlight filtered through the cracked window, illuminating the clutter. Mary's heart raced. There was no clean exit here. Only more risks and maybe ghosts of the past. We need to find a way out, she said hurriedly, although her voice shook slightly. That feeling of being hunted returned, amplifying her frantic state. Julia stumbled over a fallen chair, its legs snapping together, sending the sound of wood scraping against wood echoing in the cramped space. Mary held her breath, straining to listen, and a wild pulse of adrenaline urged her to keep moving. Over there, Julia pointed at a mouse hole in the corner. That could lead us out, maybe. Mary's eyes flicked to the hole, a tiny potential escape that might also lead them deeper into danger. I doubt it will fit, she began, but Julia had already fallen to her knees. Let me try, Julia insisted, determination sparking in her eyes. Without waiting for agreement, she squeezed through the tight opening, disappearing into the darkness. Mary swallowed hard, anxiety clawing at her throat. What if something was waiting on the other side? But they were out of options. She crouched close to the hole, hoping for a sign. Julia, can you hear me? She hissed. For what felt like eternity, there was only silence, and the knot in Mary's stomach twisted tighter. Just as doubt began to fester, she heard a faint voice. Mary, there's another door. You have to hurry. Mary's pulse quickened. Okay, I'm coming. She dropped to her knees, pushing her body through the narrow hole. The scrapes of the jagged edges tore at her skin, but she didn't stop, fueled by the urgency to reach Julia. At last, she tumbled out into a dim corridor, panting and disoriented. Julia? She stood, scanning the darkness for her friend. Then she heard a noise, a soft, eerie whisper that didn't belong to them. The chill of something sinister slipped down her spine. Mary, it came again, closer this time, the voice so unnervingly familiar. Julia, where are you? Panic surged through Mary. She stumbled deeper into the corridor, following the sound, dread pooling in the pit of her stomach. Then she froze. There, silhouetted by moonlight, stood Julia, but something was off. She looked different, almost. Blank fear clawed at Mary's throat. Jules? No. The voice was layered, twisted. As realization crashed over Mary, the metaphorical door to her sanity began to close. Was this truly Julia? Or something far worse, a horror wearing her face? The darkness thickened around her, and the truth she wasn't ready to face loomed heavily in the chilly air. What had really dragged them into this nightmare? And more importantly, could they escape it before the truth consumed them? Mary's heart thudded in her chest, the weight of dread pinning her to the spot. What stood before her was a reflection twisted by shadows, a ghost of the friend she once knew. Julia's face seemed like a mask, devoid of emotion. Julia, she repeated, her voice barely audible, trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. The figure before her tilted its head, a grotesque imitation of familiarity. Mary, help me. The words dripped with an unsettling melody, echoing in the cold corridor with a fractal quality that left Mary feeling cold inside. It reached for her, fingers elongated and jarring, like a marionette under the control of a fractured puppeteer. Stay away, Mary yelled, instinctively taking a step back, until her back pressed against the damp wall. The room swirled, shadows dancing in her peripheral vision, making her dizzy. I'm scared. The voice twisted again, a dissonant chord ringing through the still air. You have to find me. I'm trapped. Mary's instincts screamed for her to run. Yet her feet felt glued to the ground as she searched for some thread of the real Julia in that chilling facade. Where? Where are you trapped? Down the hall the voice faded, almost like a wisp of smoke slipping through her fingers, tightening the knot of fear in her chest. You have to hurry. Before she could think, Mary turned on her heel and dashed back down the corridor, her pounding heart echoing the thrumming of her panic. Every shadow seemed to writhe. Every creak of the wood beneath her echoed like a warning. She needed to find the door, the escape, whatever straw she could grasp before it closed the trap on her soul. Mary could see another door at the end of the corridor, slightly ajar. A sliver of warm light beckoned as if it were taunting her. What if she wasn't meant to escape? What if she was only running deeper into something darker? Julia! She shouted, pressing forward towards the light. The pull of hope battled against the vine of fear wrapping around her heart, squeezing tighter with each step. The door creaked open slightly at her touch, revealing what looked like an attic, dark and dusty, but alive with memories of another time. She stepped over a threshold that felt like crossing a line into a forgotten world. In that moment, the darkness around her retreated just enough to let her breathe. Childish toys lay scattered about, a faded bear propped up against an old rocking chair. But something was wrong. An unease settled thick in the air. She felt watched, deeper eyes lurking just out of sight. Mary. The familiar voice sliced through her thoughts again, softer this time, backing away from the surface of her mind, almost lost in the echoes. Julia, she replied, dread and relief battling in her voice as she searched the dim space. Where are you? The bear's button eyes seemed to flicker. It was absurd, but in that moment, the fabric of her reality began to fray. A shiver ran up her spine. What if the fear had already seeped into her bones? What if the real nightmare wasn't about escaping at all? The whispers churned around her in a chorus, drowning her in anxiety. It seemed the house wasn't letting her go so easily. Then suddenly a chilling realization hit her, her mind racing with implications. Julia! Mary cried out again, desperation igniting inside her. Is this really you? The air thickened with an unsettling silence. Was she finally losing it? I love you, Mary, but they want you too. At that moment, the floorboards groaned ominously. The lights flickered, choking in and out. Shadows bristled with malicious intent, swirling around her. A cacophony of lost whispers and fractured promises filling the space. Mary tore her gaze away from the encroaching dark, her eyes drawn to a second door hidden beneath a mound of boxes. This can't be happening, she whispered, sweat beading on her forehead as she raced toward it. She turned the handle, heart pounding with fear and adrenaline. What lay beyond that door? A path to freedom or deeper into hell? And just as she pushed it open, a sinister laugh echoed from behind, laced with familiarity and dread. Mary, don't you want to bring me home? With that last chilling whisper, the door swung wide, revealing a sprawling landscape of chaos. Mary took a breath, the weight of the world shifting at her feet. Whatever lay ahead was a truth she hadn't bargained for. Would she find her friend? Or was she destined to face the darkness alone? As she stepped through, the question lodged itself deep in her mind, a gaping problem that demanded resolution. What awaited her on the other side of the door? The door swung open, and Mary stepped into a world stripped of reason. The air tasted metallic like blood pooling on the floor, and the landscape unfurled before her like a twisted dream. Dim light flickered overhead, revealing a nightmarish decaying room. Half-formed memories scattered like old photographs on the pavement. Walls painted a ghastly shade of gray, cracked and peeling, bore witness to the chaos within. Shadows darted in the corners, whispers clawing at her sanity, but it was the cold echo of a familiar laugh that sent chills racing down her spine. It tugged at her like a dreaded omen. "Mary, over here," came Julia's voice, pulled through the fabric of reality like a thread unraveling. Mary turned toward the sound, her throat tight with fear. "Julia!" She took a trembling step forward, desperation driving her. Lurking shadows twisted, thickening the air around her. Her instincts blared alarms, but she had to find her friend. She had to. As Mary moved deeper, the landscape shifted, warping around her. The walls pulsed like a living entity, pulsating with an otherworldly heartbeat. With each step her heart thumped louder, drowning out the surging whispers, distant cries, muffled but clear in their agony. "Help me!" Julia's plea ripped through the noise. It possessed an urgency that made Mary stumble. "Where are you?" she shouted, panic fraying her mind. Suddenly the ground shook beneath her feet. Something stirred in the shadows, shape-shifting and writhing. The laughter returned, cruel and mocking, as if the very air conspired against her. "Help!" Julia's voice faltered, choked by a sound that crawled under Mary's skin. "Don't let them take you." Mary felt that familiar tightening grip of dread. "I won't leave you," she screamed, driven by an unfathomable force. The floor warped, revealing an unfathomable abyss, a yawning maw beckoning her. She teetered at the edge, eyes wide with terror. In the darkness, silhouettes reached up, a frightening visage of despair, hands clawing at reality, begging for release. "Julia!" Mary cried again, her voice tremulous. "Tell me where you are." "Mary, don't get too close." The warning rang out, but the shadows whispered louder, swirling, promising truth cloaked in lies. She could see her friend, or what looked like her. A figure molded from shadows, eyes dark and glinting, a reflection of her own fear. Just then, a breath of wind sliced through the tension, and the figure wavered. Mary's heart raced as she squinted, desperately trying to understand. "You're not Julia." The realization gripped her. The figure flickered, distress morphing into outrage. "Why don't you come join us?" The shadows hissed, their collective voices dripping with malice, pulling her towards the brink. "No." Mary stumbled back, wrestling with fear. She couldn't lose herself to the specter of despair. Where is she? Where is Julia? A lightning bolt of insight struck, igniting a spark of defiance within her. She turned her focus inward, searching for the flicker of hope in the turbulent chaos. "I refuse to let go," she yelled, binding her will against the darkness. With every ounce of strength, she reached back into her memories, conjuring the laughter, love, and light that Julia once brought into her life. "Julia, I believe in you." In that moment the shadows shrieked, a cacophony of rage erupting around her. And then silence. Mary's heart hammered as she stood, bathed in the dim light of the room's edge. The abyss pulsed, the dark energy swirling away, leaving a fragile silence that hung in the air like a delicate balance of fate. Through the stillness, a flicker of light appeared ahead, something soft and familiar. "Mary," it was Julia's voice again, stronger this time, laced with urgency. "Follow me. I'm right here." With newfound resolve and a rush of adrenaline, Mary dashed forward, racing toward the guiding spark. But as she took a step, the air shifted dramatically once more. Dread clung to her throat, a sensation of looming danger taunting and waiting. "Who do you think you're really saving?" echoed the dark laugh, slithering through the air again. Mary's breath caught. Was it too late? Were the shadows already winning? Determination surged within as she pressed on, ready to confront whatever truth lay ahead, even if it meant facing the ultimate horror. Would she reach Julia in time? Or would the darkness consume them both? The answer loomed ever closer. The flicker of light ahead pulsed like a heartbeat, urging Mary closer. She sprinted, the whispers of the shadows clawing at her heels, creeping closer with every desperate breath she took. "I'm coming, Julia," she shouted, fear igniting the air around her like a firestorm as she reached the light. The room morphed around her, walls bending and folding, revealing glimpses of her memories, kites in the sky, laughter spilling over like summer rain, joys that felt long gone. But none held the warmth she needed now. "Why are you hesitating?" The mocking voice of the shadows echoed again, creeping along her spine. "She is not who you think she is." Pain like a knife twisted in her chest. "Shut up," Mary cried, pushing forward. "You're lying." But doubt seeped into her heart like poison. She could almost hear the shadows whispering sweet nothings, tempting her to abandon the hope that fueled her. If only she could reach Julia. "Please, Mary. You have to trust me." Julia's voice seemed to shatter the walls of reality further, pulling her toward that hope. Ahead, a figure emerged. Julia stood there, bathed in the warm, flickering light, eyes wide and filled with desperation. "You have to hurry. They're coming. You need to leave." Mary's heart leaped. "Julia!" She rushed forward, the shadows swirling and snapping like angry dogs. "What is happening?" "They want to take you." Julia breathed, her voice frantic. "I see them trying to twist everything you believe. Don't listen to them." She extended her hand, commitment in her gaze, pulling Mary closer. But darkness wriggled at the edges of Julia's light, threatening to blot her out entirely. The malicious laughter rippled around them, encasing Mary in a bubble of dread. "Trust us, Mary," it hissed. "Don't you want the truth?" A surge of panic gripped Mary. "The truth? Or your version of it?" The uncertainty of the words reverberated through her, chilling her to the bone. "The truth is that you'll only create more pain," the shadows taunted, their voices intertwining, weaving a web of fear. "Look at her. Can you really trust it's her?" In that moment, the light flickered ominously. "Listen to me," Julia cried, her urgency palpable. "I'm your friend. I need you to choose me." Fury ignited in Mary. "You're not real," she shouted toward the flickering light, fighting against the rising tide of shadows. "You're just a trick." In the pulse of the dark, Mary felt her will slip away, the unseen hands tugging, changing the very fabric of her thoughts. She swallowed hard, each heartbeat echoing like a drum. This was the moment. Would she choose faith over fear? "I choose Julia," she screamed, pouring everything she had into the words. With that declaration, the shadows screeched in unison, ripping through the air, dissipating in a wave of fury, and then silence. The darkness swirled back, retreating like a tide, revealing a scene wrought with anguish. Julia lay there, alive yet trembling, the shadow's grip fading but not fully gone. Mary rushed forward, kneeling beside her friend, shaking hands, reaching out. "Julia!" As she cradled her friend, relief surged through her like fire. But it was short-lived. Something in Julia's eyes, a flicker of despair, sent a chill racing back down Mary's spine. "What did it take?" she whispered, fear gnawing at her insides. Before she could respond, Julia's body convulsed, and her voice twisted into a tone Mary barely recognized, half a whisper, half a scream. "It's not over. Mary, they're still here." Mary's heart plummeted. "What do you mean? What's coming?" Suddenly, the shadows lurked at the periphery, gathering strength, their laughter rising again, a cruel symphony of dread. "We're not safe yet," Julia warned, eyes wide with terrified realization. As the darkness encroached once more, Mary felt the weight of the world condensing around her, tightening like a noose. The fight wasn't over. Could Mary protect Julia and herself from what was yet to come? Could she face the ultimate truth revealed in the heart of shadow? The chilling question resonated, as the shadows began to swirl around them once more. The air crackled with tension, thick with fear and uncertainty. Mary's heart raced as she locked eyes with Julia. "What do we do? How do we fight them?" Julia's gaze flickered around, seeking an escape, but the shadows had already begun to creep forward, tendrils reaching out like dark fingers. "We have to," she choked out, her voice laced with panic. Suddenly, she shivered, and her eyes glazed over with a distant fear. Mary shook her. "Julia, stay with me. Fight." The murmurs of the shadows swirled around them, louder now, echoing like cruel laughter through a distorted funhouse. "You think you can stay united against the truth?" they sneered. You're already divided. Shut up, Mary screamed, the sound ripping from her throat. She couldn't let them weaken her resolve. Get away from us. We're not afraid of you. But the shadows coiled tighter, their laughter evolving into a cacophony of sinister voices whispering words that scraped against Mary's mind. They struck at her fears, each syllable crafting doubt. You couldn't save her before. What makes you think you can now? A surge of frustration flooded through her. I made a choice. The defiance in her voice was fierce, though doubt gnawed at her. I chose Julia. As she spoke, Julia's eyes widened, seeming to fight against the shadow's alluring grip. Yes, we can push them back. Together. The ethereal light around Julia pulsed with energy, a beacon in the consuming darkness. Mary felt its warmth spread through her, igniting a sliver of hope. But the shadows grew angry, swirling violently, transforming their laughter into screeches that pierced Mary's ears. No, this is our domain. You belong to the dark, Mary. The voices layered upon each other, drowning out her reason, plunging her deeper into despair. I won't let you take her. With a determined inhale, Mary clasped Julia's hands tightly, grounding herself in the connection, anchoring her faith in it. We are stronger than you think. In response, a wave of darkness surged forward, smashing against their light. A fierce wind picked up, sweeping through the room, sending chill bumps rippling across Mary's skin. The shadows screamed, desperate to break the bond between the two friends. Fight, Mary. Dig deep, Julia urged, her voice trembling but fierce. And then, as if summoned by sheer will, warmth bloomed from where their hands connected. The light blazed, momentarily blinding, and Mary felt the pull of the shadows weaken. Hold on, she shouted as they braced for the onslaught. But the shadows, relentless and cunning, adapted. They began to echo Julia's voice, mimicking her. Mary, it's me, trust me, let me go, each echo a knife twisting in Mary's heart. No, she shouted back, gripping Julia's hands tighter. You're not Julia. She's right in front of me. The shadows hissed, furious and insistent. She's a lie. A trick to draw you in. Can't you see? You're alone. In that moment, doubt clawed at Mary's insides, twisting into fear and despair. Julia, she whispered, eyes darting to her friendess, searching for reassurance. But Julia stood, trembling, her expression a maelstrom of anguish and longing. Mary, please. And then time seemed to freeze, the walls shimmering like heat waves. Shadows encircled them both, constricting, pulling them toward an abyss. Make your choice. The shadowed voices roared, vibrating through Mary's bones. Will you let the light go? Mary, you have to decide. Julia's urgency pulled her back, grounding her once more. Sweat dripped down Mary's back as she fought to breathe. In that moment of cracking clarity, she realized that the greatest battle wasn't between light and shadow. It was the battle within herself to believe, to trust, to hold on to the flicker of light, no matter how faint. Whatever happens, I believe in you, Mary said, her voice steadied, looking into Julia's eyes. But as the shadows howled in fury, a jarring truth began to take shape amidst the chaos surrounding them. This was more than just a fight for survival. It was a test of everything Mary thought she knew. Would she stand strong against the temptation of the dark, or would she risk everything for the sake of friendship? And just as she made her vow, a twisting darkness revealed a horrifying figure lurking at the edge of their vision. Are you ready for the truth? It whispered, its voice indistinguishable from both friend and foe. Mary's breath hitched. What kind of truth would emerge from the shadows? The shadowy figure stepped forward, a grotesque silhouette against the flickering light, distorting into familiar shapes. Mary squinted, heart pounding in her chest. Was that a face she recognized? Mary, it hissed, grinning wide enough to reveal rows of jagged teeth. Don't you miss me? It was her mother. But twisted and wrong, like a mirage of someone she once loved, now corrupted by darkness. No, Mary whispered, shaking her head, denial flooding her veins. Can you feel her loss? The figure taunted. You dishonored her memory by choosing this life, by choosing Julia. The words dripped with malice, each one digging deeper. Julia's grip on Mary's hand tightened, grounding her in the moment. That's not her. It can't be. But Mary could feel the doubt seeping back in. Each word from the shadows wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing until she could hardly breathe. Leave her alone, Mary shouted, but her voice wobbled. All those years, She had pushed the memories of her mother's rejection deep down, hiding from the truth. The whisper struck hard, reigniting pain she thought was buried. She weeps for you, the figure continued, drawing nearer, its voice a haunting echo. You should have been better. You should have saved me. Fury ignited in Mary's core. She started, but Julia cut in. Mary, focus. This thing feeds on your insecurities. The shadows raged, swirling violently as if sensing their moment of weakness. Together you are weak, they chanted, laughter pouring from every corner. Divided by fear you will crumble. Enough, Mary bellowed, channeling every ounce of strength into her voice. You do not define me. Julia's light pulsed between them, connecting them in a web of warmth and strength. Mary clung to it, urging it to grow brighter, to push back the shadows. With each heartbeat, she recalled the happier moments with her mother, not the rejection, but the love, the laughter, the warmth of summer afternoons spent baking cookies and singing out-of-tune songs. Mom, I loved you, she cried, her voice raw. And you loved me. The figure writhed, the edges blurring as the declaration struck it. You betray your past. It shrieked, but the shadows flickered, hesitating for a moment. Mary, Julia encouraged, her eyes fierce and unwavering. Remember everything good. Use it. The warmth surged stronger, driving the shadows back, but the malevolent figure clawed forward. You are lost without me. You needed me. No, Mary shouted, defiance filling her. I am not lost. I have Julia. I choose to embrace love and kindness. Light erupted between them, brighter than before. As memories flooded her mind, laughter over dinners, shared secrets, hugs that felt like home. The darkness screeched, reforming into a whirlwind that whipped around them, trying to swallow their light. You will regret this choice. Not now, Julia shouted, pulling Mary closer. Let us break their hold together. They stood shoulder to shoulder, hearts racing as pure light erupted from their clasped hands, pushing against the shadows fiercely. The building dark thrashed, but they stood steadfast, united in love and determination. Just as the darkness began to retreat, one final voice erupted from the void, deep and resonant. The truth is closer than you think. Prepare for your reckoning. Then silence. Breathless, Mary and Julia exchanged a look, knowing the battle was far from over. But something had shifted. They had pushed back, if only for a moment. What did it mean? Mary asked, heart racing in both fear and hope. But before Julia could answer, a crack appeared in the air, light seeping through, revealing yet another shadowy depth. Come on, Mary urged, pulling Julia toward the shimmering exit. The thrill of hope surged within her. But a heartbeat later, a whisper echoed behind them, a chilling reminder. The worst is yet to come. What awaited them beyond that portal? What truths were still hidden in the shadows? Mary grabbed Julia's hand, their fingers intertwined like a lifeline. As they stumbled through the crack in the air, the light engulfed them, warm and inviting, but the remnants of darkness chased just behind, like a vengeful spirit reluctant to release its prey. As they emerged, the world around them shifted once more. They found themselves back in the living room of Mary's house, though everything felt different, charged, as if the air was thick with anticipation. The chaos from before lingered just beneath the surface, an unseen current ready to drag them under. Have we escaped? Julia whispered, eyes darting around, still filled with worry. Not yet, Mary replied, her voice steady despite the tremors in her chest. We need to stand firm. Whatever comes next, we face it together. In that moment, the front door slammed open, allowing an icy wind to spiral through the room. The shadows from before poured in like a dark tide, their laughter echoing ominously. Did you think you could run? A voice sneered, thick with malice. It was the figure of her mother, now more monstrous than ever, her visage twisted with rage. You'll never escape me. Julia clenched Mary's hand tighter, her expression a mixture of determination and fear. We can't let it get to us, she urged. Remember the light we found in the darkness. Mary nodded, feeling the warmth from their shared bond radiate between them. We'll fight it once more. Together. The room quaked, shadows swirling violently around them, but Mary remembered the laughter, the love she had cultivated over the years. Breathe, she told herself. Hope was not just a flickering light. It was a blaze waiting to be unleashed. Let go of her, Mary shouted, directing her voice toward the advancing darkness. You can't keep us imprisoned by your lies. The shadows writhed, as if they felt her defiance. But with her hand still grasping Julia's, Mary summoned the memories, the gentle moments filled with joy, the warmth of family and friendship, the sweet taste of hope. She focused on every laugh, every loving touch, all the magic that seemed so fragile yet powerful. Julia leaned forward, stepping side by side with Mary, their shared strength electrifying the air. You have no power over us, she added, her voice steeped in resolve. With hearts pounding, they unleashed all their love and light together. A brilliant blaze that shot from their clasped hands, illuminating the room like 1,000 fireworks. The shadows screamed, the chilling echoes vibrating through the air. The malevolent figure of Mary's mother twisted under the weight of their combined strength. You cannot escape your past, it hissed, but even as the shadowed face contorted, Mary felt the bond of love swell between her and Julia, creating an impenetrable barrier. Our past shaped us, Mary bellowed, but it will not define us. With those words they pushed the light forward, until it surged violently against the darkness, illuminating every dark crevice. Finally, the shadows began to unravel, hissing and clawing against the surge of light. With one final echoing scream they disintegrated, fading into the walls until only silence remained. Breathless, Mary fell to her knees, gasping for air, the lingering stillness filling the room. Julia sank down beside her, gripping her arm and supporting her as they processed the madness that had just unfolded. We did it, Mary exhaled, feeling a spark of hope flicker within her. Yes, Julia smiled, eyes shining with relief. We faced it together. But as they shared a moment of joy, the ground began to tremble beneath them once more. A tense realization gripped Mary, reminding her that while the darkness had retreated, the threat had not fully dissipated. What is that? Julia's voice trembled. Another reckoning is coming, Mary said, dread creeping in. We need to stay vigilant. A sudden gust of wind barreled through the open door, chilling them to the bone, stirring a sense of finality as it swept the room. Shadows lurked at the edges of their sanctuary, stretching like fingers mocking their hard-fought victory. Julia squeezed Mary's hand tighter. Whatever it is, we'll face it. We have to believe in each other. Mary took a breath, drawing on Julia's strength, every heartbeat pounding with shared determination. This is our time. We will not falter. With renewed resolve they stood side by side, hearts steady, prepared to confront whatever lay ahead as the shadows stirred again. A split emerged in the doorway, opening like a mouth wide and dark. Are you ready for the truth? Echoed the voice, a dark whisper that crept between them. We are, Mary declared, steeling herself. Together they took a step forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever awaited, willing to uncover every hidden truth laced within the tangled threads of their lives. And as they crossed into the darkness once more, hope illuminated their path like a blazing star against the void. Remember, this battle had changed them, and they now held the power to transform their own destinies. Now go, face your own truths and fight for the light that is the only way to illuminate the shadows. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that pull you in. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support for stories like this one. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense ending. And for goodness sake, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't let them miss out on what comes next in this journey. You are the heartbeat of this channel, so don't wait even one more second to show your dedication.